All right. All right. We are live. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another epic episode of Pin the Gas Podcast. And man, let me tell you guys what an honor it is and a special treat I have for you today. My man, Michael Howarth. Welcome to Pin the Gas.
Thanks for having me on, mate. It was it was strange to walk around Cadwell Park the other week when you were down there on the bank holiday weekend over in the UK, and some crazy American guy comes steaming over and, "Hey man," and then because of your relationship with a friend of mine, Dave Neal, he was like, "I need to get you on this podcast, dude." And immediately I thought, well, great. I've not done so many this year. I was actually going to have a bit of time off from doing podcasts, but then when you said I need to get you on, my first thought was, them Americans won't understand a word I'm saying, man. But yeah, you've said you can understand me well enough. So if there's any interpretations need doing or whatever, I can explain my words. Yeah, but no, it's great to be on.
Yeah, man. Again, what an honor it is just to have you here, man. Yes, all because of Dave Neal. Thank you so much, Dave Neal. Big shout out to him. If you guys don't follow Off Track Podcast, I don't know what you guys are doing. After you listen to this podcast, you need to get on to Off Track and rewind and go listen to him. So, Mike, listen, enough about that. Why don't you introduce yourself to all these Americans that don't know who you are and tell us how you got into motorcycles?
Right. Okay. I've just, excuse me. I was just looking down and I wasn't being ignorant. I've just shared it to my Facebook now. As you worked out, I'm not very good with technology. It was a nightmare just getting on here. So yeah. How did I get into motorcycle racing? Well, back when I was as a young boy, my father had motorcycles. He sadly passed away when I was 14, so I had to become a man really quite early in my life. I'd had a couple of motorbikes, but I was actually destined to go and be a professional rugby player at the time. I mean, you've seen me. For the Americans, it's like American football, but we don't wear as many pads. But I can't diss American football because the way them guys eat each other, I'd want all that padding on as well. But so my life took me into professional rugby. I had an injury playing that. I broke my right leg quite severely. Spent a year trying to get fit again to go back and carry on playing, and I just couldn't. I was tipped to kind of go to the top. As we go through the motorcycle thing, you'll explain. Motorcycle was my love, and I got to where I wanted to be. But I was actually really, really good at rugby to a level of being able to play for my country and such. But I broke my leg, and I had 12 months trying to get fit again, and thought, I'm just not doing it. And I kind of bit the bullet. And as I just said to you, just off air then. So what happened was, I thought I need to do something else with my weekends because I was going out and partying, enjoying my life too much and getting a bit fat and whatever. I thought, sorry, I'm going to go and do a track day. And at the time, I'd just bought you call them RC51s, SP1s over here. Absolutely. I love them. I've got one in bits that I need to build now. And I went and did this track day. And there's all these other bikes on track that look like race bikes. And I'm flying past all these guys and I'm thinking, I'm Valentino fucking Rossi, mate. I am fast. But what I didn't realise was these were just normal guys on a track day that had took all the road fairings off the bike and put race fairings on. So they weren't really racers. So then one thing led to another. A friend of mine was already doing a bit of club racing over here. And he had a couple of Aprilia RCVs, the V-twins. And he lent me one. He said, come and have a race. So did the thing, got my licence. Back then, to get a race licence in the UK, you had to go and get your eyes tested and fill a form in, and you got your race license. It was that simple before bureaucracy and health and safety got into it. So that's how I got my license. Otherwise, I'd never got one. And one thing, we got down to Cadwell Park. That was my very, very first race. That's why I love the place so much. And did my first race, and I think they turned the lights off in the clubhouse and the bar had shut by the time I'd finished my first fucking race. I was that far back. It was awful. And then the day after, I calmed down and my friend spoke to me and said, look, you know, you're better than this. Even on track days, you've been going around faster. So just calm down. You're in the novice group. Just ride through. And by the end of that weekend, I'd claimed my first trophy. I'd had a third place in the novice race. So we thought, we need to do a little bit more with this. With all the family around me. It was towards the end of the year anyway. So there was only a couple of other rounds left. We didn't bother with those. But I went away over the winter. I bought a Ducati 996S. that had the all-ins rear shock, but the shower front forks. Right. Even when I bought it, the bike was it was a decent looking race bike, but it was still, it had been haggard. It had been used well. So the rebend didn't even work on the rear shock, but at the speeds you were going at club racing then, it didn't really matter. Your suspension was there and thereabouts, but it didn't matter. So we did all right in that first season. I finished third in the New Era Sound of Thunder Championship it was, and it was for all V-twins. Now, bearing in mind the guys that were first and second in that championship that year had two ex-Troy Bayliss World Superbikes, Ducatis, or Ducati, as you guys call them. And mine was just an old nail, but I did well enough. And the guy that I'd palled up with a little bit in the race paddock was going to go and do BSB the year after. And he said, why don't you sell your Ducati, buy a ZX10, how's it going? And just come and do the super stock. Now, back then, there was the super stock, which you saw at Cadwell, the super stock guys, and there was a thing called the super stock cut, which was for newcomers as such, but on the 1000cc bikes. And I had a fair season doing that. I think I had a best qualifying of 5th at Thruxton, which is another one of my most favourite circuits. That's a place, next time you come, you should come there. That is just wild.
Thruxton, huh?
Oh, it's so fast. It's almost like the TT, really. It feels a little bit illegal while you're doing it because it's just that quick. Sorry, I'm just going to plug me.
No, you're good.
So I went into the Superstock Cup that season. I was on for a podium at Alton Park in the rain, and I nearly come off at the last turn, and I finished, I think, so my best ever finish was about 5th, and I finished 10th in the championship. And then some guy come over to me that had helped me a little bit through the year. He said, do you fancy going on my superbike? Now, bearing in mind, this is very late October, early November in England. And we went to Alton Park and it was freezing. I think that when we got there in the morning, it was -2. And I don't think the track temperature went above 4 degrees. But I jumped on this superbike that looked very much like my ZX10 Kawasaki, but it was a full superbike. And I got on this thing.
Right.
Back then it was doing nearly 200 brake horse in 2006. It was a proper, like the superbikes now, it had no traction control. And I've got to say, there was quite a few of the laps where it nearly went down, and I thought I'm going to get a very big bill if I crash this. But the test went well. And he said, do you want to ride the superbike next year for me and my team? And I said, yes. And because I was such a late starter, I was already in my kind of mid-20s at this point. Not like the kids that start at 5 and 6 years old. I'd done a few of the rounds in the Superstock Cup where the times were good, but the organizer, Stuart Higgs, the boss of BSB, was like, you've done a year in BSB, in the paddock. You're not really ready to go into Superbike. And I was like, I'm more than ready. If I'm going to set my mind to do something, I'll do it, and it matters not. So he said, right, go to Howarth. And we went on a 10-day test in Howarth. And actually won my first race out there on a superbike. They had one at the end of the 2-week test. Won that, come back to the UK. Stuart Higgs said, right, come to the first test at Snetterton. I'm going to give you a lap time that you must reach. And if you don't reach it, your season's over. I did 2 laps, fell off, broke my leg. I thought, someone run into me, and I broke my talus bone in my left ankle, which is the one that everything rotates around. It's one of the bones like your scaphoid that gets hardly any blood source.
Right.
So it took a while to fix that, but we thought it was over. But Stuart Higgs basically just said, oh, come and have a go at it. So I missed the first couple of rounds, got to Alton, and I think by round 4 or 5, I'd already put it on the podium in the Superbike Cup class that there was then. Took my first win at Cadwell Park, of course, so that meant everything to me. And then went on from there. To owning my own teams, and kind of been in and out of BSB ever since. If you have any questions about that bit, ask me now, because it's still got a lot to say about where to get to this day. 2007 come around, and this guy that I've been riding for basically said the price for the ride now is X amount, and I went, there's no way. I didn't think I could raise it to start with. But then I also said, I'm not giving you that amount of money to walk away at the end of the season with absolutely nothing. You know, basically carrying your kit bag out the truck,
right,
and going. So we sat down with the family, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to race in superbikes. And somebody contacted me out of the blue because I'd been putting on Facebook I was looking for something, and they were selling a team, JHL Honda, I think it was, and Steve Plater had rode for him in that year. They had a couple of Hondas, which were a really, really good superbike back then because you didn't have traction control. So the chassis meant everything, and they were so smooth and brilliant. And somehow we managed to raise enough funds to buy 2 bikes and all the team attire apart from the truck. So we were ready to race. And we went to Almeria in Spain, did some testing there, and I was absolutely flying. We went to the first official test back at Snetterton again for BSB, and it was raining the Friday and the Saturday, and I mean, pissing down. I even topped a timesheet. I was faster than Hickey and Kianari at one time. Boom!
Yes, just go, yeah.
I've still got those timesheets to this day. But I crashed one of my bikes on the Saturday afternoon. But because I was one of the only riders on track, Dunlop were coming taking the tyres away and testing them and looking at them and seeing how the wet tyres were performing. So on the Sunday, back then we were still in the middle of a tyre war between Michelin and Dunlop and Pirelli and whatnot. So Dunlop come over, and as a reward, they gave me a special tyre. And they said, we're going to give you this so you can have a roll around today, but you will never see this tyre again. It was literally, back then, the tyre war was that intense that Dunlop couldn't produce enough tyres for everyone on the Dunlop shod bike to have these tyres. But I was 2 seconds a lap faster than I've ever been, just off the tyre. I never got anywhere. When we went to race there at Snetterton during the year, we could have never got anywhere near it. But unfortunately, at the first actual round at Brands Hatch, some of the guys in America will probably remember this, but in 2007, Orleans had brought out a new fork called the FJR 700. And it was the one that on the flute bits, they had big cutouts. Mm-hmm. Beautiful things. But they'd manufactured them wrong, and they'd put a really fine thread in the bottom where they go into the stanchion at the bottom.
Yep.
And took too much material away. So on the Sunday morning, it comes onto the back straight in warm-up, and I've got Shaky Byrne at one side of me and Steve Plater at the other. And I'd just given both the V's, just having a laugh, and I set off. And I went down the back straight, and as I put my brakes on and tipped in, I saw my front wheel disappear into the distance.
Oh, no.
And at first, I thought, fucking hell, the guys have not put... they haven't tightened my front wheel spindle up, and that's what's happened. It's fallen out. But it wasn't the bottom of the forks. It snapped. And it's an 140-mile-an-hour crash there at best. It was a big one. I remember flying through the air, and I heard this big snap, and I come to rest on the floor, and my right leg was by my left ear. I was like, oh. So I pushed it away, and at this point, I'm convinced my leg's been ripped off. But I'm looking for blood, and I'm like, well, there's no blood. Went to the hospital. They put a rod in it, but I was going to be out for quite some time, so we decided then to bring another rider in called Tristan Palmer. So I then took over the mantle of being the team manager and kind of owner. And Tristan started winning straight away. So by the time I was ready to be fit to be back racing anyway, there was no point me getting on it because we were leading the Superbike Cup Championship, and we had a chance of winning a Superbike Championship in our very first year of competition. So we left Tristan on it, and thanks to a certain Mr. Paul Bird, God rest his soul, we've recently just lost at BSB.
Absolutely.
We got to Donington, which there was about 3 rounds left. And I mean, the title chase was fairly close, but we were still doing okay. But money was getting tight, and the engines were getting very tired. And we'd kind of, I think one of the engines had got an oil leak. And my chief mechanic at the time said, listen, do you know Paul Bird? And I said, yeah, we've spoke of it. You know, I'm pally enough, and I've been around the paddock for a year or two by now. He said, go and see if we can borrow an engine off him, because if we send Tristan out on this engine and it blows up, we lose 25 points like that. So kind of a bit bold and brash, I thought, yeah, I'll do it. So I went down to Paul's truck and went in the back, and I said, mate, this is a script with our engine. Is there any chance you could rent us one, or we'll pay for the mileage? You know, we'll come up with a deal. And he buggered off a minute, and he come back in after with the team manager he had at the time, and he went, take that engine there. And I went, well, how much is it going to cost? He went, take that engine there. Give us the engine to win it. And then 3 rounds later, we were Superbike Cup champions. As it turned out, at the end of that year, then we got a big sponsor on board, which was a company called Tenner for Men. Now, in this country, Tenner is a tenner lid. It's a pad that women have for the time of the month or when they get older.
Right.
Incontinent.
Right.
But men also get incontinent, so they wanted to tenner. But imagine turning up at the first round with that all over your. Tenner for Men. Everyone basically took the piss because it was about. But anyway, but they come on board, and we subsequently bought two of Paul Bird's bikes from 2007, which was Sykes's and Shakey's bikes.
Nice.
We put a spares package together that was unbelievable, and yes, it was a lot of money, but what we got was far more than what we paid. And he said, look, you use that engine, you didn't give it us back. He said, we'll just put 500 quid on the bill. Is that all right by you? Now, one of Birdie's engines would have cost thousands to build.
Facts.
It just went, yeah, but it'll be right. And then continued to help me on and off for the rest of my racing career, just with little bits when you needed something and you didn't know who else to ask. Birdie'd have a contact or he'd know where to go. When he went to the Kawasaki's in the early 2010s, 11s, he had a swinging arm made that only he could get. It was his team's design and wouldn't sell it to anybody. We bought a bike off somebody that had one on, but I was going to run two riders. So again, straight away, rings Birdie. Do you fancy selling us a swing arm? Because I don't want one lad saying he's faster than me because he's got the swing arm and I haven't. Straight away, rings his man up. Give that man one of them swing arms. Just a mega guy, and it's quite fitting that we're doing this podcast and I get to be able to, just say my own personal thank you to what Birdie did for my racing career, my racing teams. It really was. The tributes that have poured in, and Fred did an amazing job at Alton Park at weekend, and there's been so much wrote. But a lot of the public never got to see the really good side of Paul Bird because he was, in interviews, he was very abrupt. And at one time, he was very cutthroat. And if his riders weren't performing, he wouldn't care about sacking them. He was there to win.
Yeah. So
they never got to see the softer side. The amount of riders that still didn't even get mentioned at the weekend that Paul helped behind the scenes, and it was always a bit like, I'll help you do this, but don't tell anybody. He didn't want to do it for the accolade and the thanks and the publicity. It was, he loved racing and he would help where he could, So yeah, it's nice to be able to just say thank you to Birdie on a podcast like this for sure.
And that also just goes to show, man, what a proper bloke he was throughout the whole community. Like, to me, he is BSB, right? I mean, he was such a complete in everything. And you're right. He was cutthroat when he needed to be cutthroat. But again, dude, he helped so many people within the paddock, like you just got done saying, that didn't get recognized. But his love and passion for the sport will always be there and always grow, right? And Birdie will always be with Birdie is BSB to me.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Hopefully, his team have got plans to carry on again next year, and hopefully they'll be there, and I'm pretty sure they will be. It's what they kind of didn't really mention over the weekend is you've got to remember that Paul Bird and his little team from Carlisle in England, yes, he used to buy factory bikes or ex-factory bikes and stuff, but at the time when Birdie was kind of winning some of his championships, he was taking on the might of HRC, and he's a man in Cumbria that sells chickens. You know what I mean? Yes, he had money to be able to do that and take on people. But what they don't realise is just how it was Birdie running his team and getting the right people and the best people that could beat the mights of the Japanese at the time. They've got more BSB championships than Honda, and Honda UK have dipped in and out with HRC help. If Honda want Japanese riders, they'll send them here, etc. Or in 2004, it was a full HRC effort when Michael Rutter and Kianari were riding from. But yeah, he did some fucking things, that boy.
Yeah, he did. So hang on, Jules. I'll chime you in here in a second. What is your fondest memory of Birdie?
My fondest memory of Birdie, it's quite it's a weird one, really, because of his wealth and such things. I once went to a party at his house, and he taught me that night how to be a little bit more humble about things and not show off as much. Because I'd gone into his house and I was just I was amazed. And he had a fridge with some bottles of champagne in, and I went to take a picture, and he went, don't do that. Clowns do that. You don't post pictures of crap like that, you know. And that was one of my fondest memories because I just took a lot from it, that you don't need to, you know, show your wealth or show your friends and all that. You know, showing things at racing is fine, but the personal stuff in the background is that's what it is. It's in the background. But yeah, just a funny guy that you could. I had many phone conversations with him, and it was just a laugh. You know, he was never up himself. Right. You know, he never looked down on you, really.
Right. That speaks volumes of who Bertie was as a person, right? What's your fondest crazy party story with Bertie? Because I know you got some.
I think just the end of season parties where you'd be walking around the paddock and I'm just a little minnow in the paddock, and Bertie be there and you'd see him and he'd give you a wristband and say, make sure you turn up to my party tonight, boy. And yeah, he was. No, it was fun. He was a good guy. Yeah, can't really say too many stories on here.
No, you're good. Yeah. He will be well missed, but he will forever live, Mr. BSB Bertie, for sure, 110%. Jules, what is up, my man?
What's up? No, I'm out here just learning and just in awe of what I'm hearing, because it's the first time I'm hearing all of this. So yeah, man, this is definitely an interesting story for someone who doesn't like to flex like Bertie. And he throws wild parties like that. He's like, no flexing, but hey, I could throw a party.
Listen, and the end of season parties at BSB used to be, I mean, they're a little bit calmer than nowadays, but you'd just be going from one team tent to another, you know, the hospitality, and it'd just be madness. Me and my best friend Carl Harris, who sadly passed away at the TT. There was one year he was riding for Honda and he'd broken his ankle, so it must have been. Was it 06 or 07? They built him a bike at the last round because he was riding a BLD Honda, which was built by Honda UK. But they built him a full HRC spec Honda because they needed him to kind of interfere with Gregorio Lavia.
Right.
So that Keogh could win the championship. But Carl, in his usual way, I think he might have even put it on pole, but the first lap he sent the bike to the moon and broke his ankle. And we went to the Honda hospitality and we come out absolutely steaming drunk. And we couldn't find my pit scooter. There was some police there. So we're like, here, somebody's nicked our fucking scooter and we can't get around because he's broke his ankle. So I'm giving him a piggyback. And all it was, me and him was too drunk to realise we put the scooter down the side of the hospitality. So after walking around for 45 minutes, we found it and then went flying back past these police officers. Absolutely total, like. Going, yeah, we found it. It's private land and we weren't doing no harm. And I think, you know, I'm sure Carl got a telling off Honda, but yeah, that was a good night. Me and Carl had some good parties. Some good parties.
Hence the nickname Shotgun Michael Howarth. Because I'm sure you can shotgun a beer. Oh wait, what is that? That's a beer.
That is Vimto Energy. I don't think you guys have that over.
No, America. We don't. No.
It's just, but I've drunk Monster Energy for years, but Vimto, it's a cordial drink over here, which you guys don't really have over there, do you know, that you mix with water?
No.
And they brought out this energy drink, and now I'm addicted to it. But as the night goes on, or as this podcast goes on,
there you go. Hey.
There you go. We got a proper pint in the house. That's right.
Back in my rugby days, I was known for being able to drink. I could drink a pint of lager in under a second.
Wow.
And I could do 2.5 pints of snake bite in 2.5 seconds.
Well, next time me and you get together, it's going to be a proper mega time.
Gotta get it that way. Up.
Absolutely.
Oh, we got this comment from Mark Davey. He says, my wife loves VR46. There was no chance of getting his autograph. Lynn and I were guests of the Stuart Eastern and Brands Hatch, and we got to speak to Mr. Bird. He asked for our address. A month later, a letter came from Paul. Inside was not only VR46's autograph, but a letter from VR to my wife. Also, there were 2 hospitality tickets to the next round at Snetterton. Beast of a track. This guy was a legend to us. Gonna miss him so bad. Love your Howie.
That's me, Howie.
Yep.
Love you, Howie.
Absolutely.
Howie in the hoodie.
Man, this is my logo from racing.
Oh, nice.
See there.
Yep.
So the O, because I was a rugby player, they made into a rugby ball. But somebody actually pointed out the other day, it's not a rugby ball, it's an American football. So for you, a rugby ball in my logo, and it's not.
Hold up. American handball, football, soccer, right? Let's just clear up the air, right? Us Americans got it all fucked up when it comes to that football
Listen,
shit.
mate, that soccer ball, football, whatever you want to call it, is not for me. It's just shite.
Yeah.
I think it's called football.
Yeah, it's crap. A lot of kicking a football around for hours is not for me.
Yeah.
I think it's called football because it's a game of distance. So instead of like literal football, I think it's the distance of feet, which is 3 feet in the yards, which yards are how they calculate how far they go within each play. But there's not one moment in American football where they mention the metric measurement of feet. It's either yards or inches. So it doesn't make sense to me. I have no clue. Like if you're gonna do it in an American metric system, call it yard ball. like that makes sense.
Yard ball, yeah, you're
because
right.
If you watch American football, it's 5 yards till this, 1 yard till that, 1 yard, blah 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 blah. We never mentioned feet.
No.
But I've always been curious, man. Like what was like the workout regimen being a superbike racer versus being a rugby player?
Well, so initially in the transition year from rugby to racing, I was still quite big. I'd have been 15 and a half stone, nearly 100 kilos, whichever. I don't know what it is in pounds.
How many kilos?
100.
Around about 100 kilos when I was at my biggest for rugby. So
probably like 205 maybe, something 205 pounds, something like that.
So I had to change my training regime to go from. I mean, obviously rugby's short, sharp sprints, and so you've got to get quite a bit of cardiovascular fitness, but nothing like you have with racing. So that was the biggest thing. Straight away was going on a push bike and getting some weight off, and then. But even then, at my lightest in superbikes, I was still by quite a margin the heaviest bloke there. I got to 13 stone, and I once went underneath that to about 12 and a half, and I just had no strength, so I couldn't perform then. I had the dream of getting to superbikes once I got into racing, but that was kind of my goal. I knew I'd got into it too late, and I knew I was never going to win the full title and take on the mites of Shaky Burns. So my goal was get to Superbike and do okay, and I scored points in the proper championship. Some of the times I was right at the back, but I didn't care, and I could have quite easily dropped down into super stock or gone club racing and won. But that just didn't. That wasn't my mentality. I wanted to challenge myself against some of the best riders in the world, and I got to do that. And occasionally, if it was raining, I'd get a good result. I'm quite good in the wet because I didn't care. I didn't care.
Yeah.
Ultimately ended my career in the rain, but that's another story.
Yeah, man. The fear factor ain't there anymore. I mean, you're used to like clashing shoulders with like people 2 times your size. But the fitness aspect is crazy because as somebody who I practice a lot of boxing, mixed martial arts, right? So I know what that cardio was like. But when I first went on track on a mini bike, I was exhausted. Like probably like my 6th lap, I was. I think I'm just gonna chill this lap, because I imagine like in rugby, it's like you kind of pick and choose when you turn your energy on, right? When you kind of twitch your muscles versus like in racing, you're like constantly on edge and you constantly have to be flexed the whole time. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find times to relax, but those times are very minuscule.
Yeah, and what you've got to remember over a race weekend at BSB, you've got FP1 that's 40 odd minutes long, FP2 40 odd minutes. Then you're into the next day through qualifying, and now they go straight into a race, and you 2 race on the Sunday. So you've got, you're on the bike for quite a lot of time. So your fitness, your cardiovascular fitness needs to be absolutely at a peak. And then your muscles can't be too big because then you start suffering from arm pump. I mean, I've had the proper full arm pump operations on this. Me and Cal Crutchlow had them done at the same time. And the way they measure it is the expansion of the arm, and they'd never seen anything like mine and Cal Crutchlow's, the expansion. They were like, Jesus.
Looked like Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah, basically.
Facts, right?
The football forearms.
Yeah, it looked, my forearm looked like I'd spent a lot of time being single,
A lot of lonely nights, man.
I love it, man.
It's hard out here in the streets.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Where are you right now, Howie?
Where am I right now? I am in my workshop right now. This is where the story kind of ends from racing to this. And I've now got my workshop that I do bikes in. There's one on an Aprilia on the ramp there. So I'm building and prepping race bikes for people, servicing road bikes, finding bikes, just a continuation. I've got, as I say, we're kind of skipping quite a lot of the racing, but in 2016, I rode for a BMW team that had one of Kianari's ex build race BMWs. Absolute missile of a thing. Fucking hell, it was fast. And at Alton Park, I'd not rode that season. We'd done a test on it. Got Friday morning, it was wet. I went out and did my outlap, and the team owner had said, listen, just take your time and build into it. And I went out and like, no way, it's wet. I'm on this. So I can remember I did my outlap and I come down the start-finish straight and I'm doing the doctor's dangle and everything and the bike's all over. This is fucking brilliant. I love it. And I didn't finish the lap. Danny Buchan come past me.
That's my guy right there.
I can keep up with Danny Buchan in the wet. And I actually didn't. I lasted the next corner and I went to the moon. I sent a really big eyesight. Because I already had a rod in my leg from the previous crash in 2007, they'd left the rod in, so my hip bone snapped off my femur. But I'd also broke my shoulder and dislocated my left shoulder, and I'd brought me back in 6 places. Ooh. But I managed to get to my hands and knees before I realised that there was something really wrong.
Right.
And then one of the marshals come running over because I was just on the track, and he picked me up by my broken shoulder, or tried to. And for a lad who thinks he can handle a bit of pain, I squealed like a pig.
I bet.
Wait, the marshal picked you up?
Yeah, he come running onto the track to help me because the bike was in the middle of the track, and then we were in the middle of Friday practice, so there's 20 bikes coming flying past me. So he come on to try and pick me up, but he didn't know it was broken. Neither did I till he touched it. So then I got airlifted to hospital. They put a rod in my leg again and repaired my hip and put my shoulder back in. And I think 6 weeks later, I tried to race again at Snetterton. It took 6 weeks from a broken back and a snapped leg to being back on a bike and trying to race.
Snetterton's sick.
No,
the only reason why I asked about the whole marshal thing is because I marshal a lot of races. I marshal countless MotoGP, Moto America, Formula E races, and they tell us never to touch the rider or the driver, because you don't know what's going on with them. You got to wait for them to get up.
Yeah, well, that's it. I'd already got to my hands and knees, so it looked like it was okay. It was the same in 2007 when I'd snapped my ankle. I was laid in the middle of the track and I got up and I walked away. Mm-hmm. And I'm just starting, as I'm getting a bit closer towards the fence, I'm thinking, fucking hell, this hurts a little bit. And so I fell over the fence, but because I'd walked away, they all thought I was all right. They didn't send an ambulance around for half an hour because he just thought, he's just having a minute. He's sitting down and calming. But I'm at the other side of the fence going, where is someone? But
because oh, my bad. That's exactly like what we're supposed to do. Is we're supposed to make sure you're okay for you to, and then we'll make that call, to get you an ambulance or whatever.
As soon as he picked me up, they soon red flagged it and realised that I was in a bit of a worse state than I thought.
I bet, yeah.
It's yeah, man, my leg's dangling, but we all right.
Yeah, good. Before the air lifted me off, we went to the medical centre and they were trying to put my arm back in, and they lifted it to this point. But because there was too much muscle mass, they couldn't kind of get it back in. And they give me morphine at this point and liquid paracetamol, and said the doctor said, listen, we're going to have to give you some of the horse tranquilizer, the ketamine. Because we need to basically make you relax and calm down, because I'm like I am now. I was like, I didn't really care. And they give me that. And then the next thing, the world was full of pink elephants and all sorts of crap. And then I was speaking to the doctor on the wrong side. I didn't even know he was there. And they managed to get it in. And the rest is history on that. Jesus.
Freaking awesome. That's exactly why we try not to touch the rider. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know if you have a broken arm. Right. So for all we know, that dude could have made it worse.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of stuck out to me.
Yeah.
I see videos of marshals in like other countries, full blown hugging MotoGP riders when they you'll be all right, bro. Let me pick you up real quick. And I'm just like, yo, these guys are skinny and fragile, and I feel like I'm about to snap a twig if I ever. I'm a pretty big dude myself, man. So it's me picking up one of those guys, I'll probably break something like trying to help.
Facts, right?
Again, because I was known in the paddock and friendly with all the marshals, they just knew me as the big daft idiot one. So if they thought, oh, he's managed to get to his hands and knees and get up, there can't be a lot wrong with him. So we just go straight in, like, yeah, let's get him up. He'll be fine. He'll be out it next session. But fuck, he wasn't that day. No, it was savage. Yeah, but if you want me to work back a little bit from there, we'll go back to the 2008 season. That was the tenner for men on the ex-Paul Bird's bikes, and we kept Tristan on. So he actually got the bikes from Paul Bird, and I stayed on the Hondas from the previous year. And had a few fair results, but there were things going on behind the scenes that the public didn't know about and such. Even though it was I don't want to start dissing people, and you know, a long time ago it's done, but there were just things in the background that were making it not work for me. So that team ended at the end of that year. Tristan finished 10th in the championship. We still kept him going and doing really well. So in 2009, I was without a ride, and I went, I think halfway through the season, I joined what was classed as the factory MV Augusta team in the UK.
Holy
shit.
Got to
ride that bike.
Why can't we have one?
As a chassis was incredible. But even then, even though the engine was tuned, it just didn't have any steam or whatsoever. The engine was old. Do you know what I mean? By then, everything else had moved on and developed. So the chassis was brilliant. It handled like a dream, but you were never going to do anything on it unless it was absolutely pissing down with rain.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. Then 2010, I rode for a guy called Dave Tyson, who subsequently become a good friend. Did half a season with him, but again, his Suzuki. We just started doing the British Superbike Cup with the new rules that they now run in the full Superbike class with the Motec that doesn't have traction control and anti-wheelie and everything to aid the riders. Did half a season with that, and then it just wasn't working out. I had 2011 off. Then I got my team, I bought a Kawasaki team and tried to run that for half a season, and then a sponsor that had promised the world never paid up and left me with about £2 on my dining room table. I'd literally spent everything I owned because he kept promising, just keep going. This money's coming. He'd promised us like £250,000, and I saw not a penny of it, and it broke me. So then I went into the wilderness for a bit then, and that's when it wasn't until 2016 when I had the comeback that didn't last. So since then, after retiring, it's just in my blood. I am consumed almost to a point of being a little bit too obsessed with it. But it is just my absolute lifeblood. I thrive on BSB. I love it. I love racing. I love motorcycles. It's just, if things are ever so slightly now because I've just had my first son a year and a half ago. So life's good in that way. The missus is grand. But yeah, and because I had to retire through injury, that itch has never been scratched because it wasn't my decision to quit.
Yeah.
So that's, and like you saw me at Cadwell now, so I still go and I do the commentary with Duncan Vincent, and used to do it with Fred Clark, which got me into doing, we used to go and do the MotoGP at Silverstone, me and Fred. That was mega. So you walk in the paddock. By then Cal Crutchlow was at MotoGP, so I got to meet all the mega riders. I've had me and Colin Edwards one night.
I bet that's a proper story right there. I guarantee with Edwards. Yes. The Texan. Yes.
Yes. We went into.
I gotta hear it. We gotta hear it, Howie.
What is now the RNF team?
Right.
It was still the Moto3 team then, run by Stiggy.
Yeah.
And I'd gone round with someone else to say hello, because Brains, that now is Josh Brooks's head mechanic, was there, and we're good friends. So we went round for a drink. And Colin turned up, and then they asked us if we wanted to stay for dinner. And then Colin's looking at me, and he's like, man, you can probably drink a bit. I'm like, well, I don't. Yeah, I can do it. So we got the grappa out, and we were drinking like shots of grappa out of a coffee mug. And actually, I ended up absolutely upside down drunk, steaming. In fact, Lorenzo run into me in the paddock on his scooter because I was walking over. I was trying to get back to the motor, and I nearly battered Lorenzo for hitting me, but it was my fault. I was like, what?
You probably would have snapped that dude in half.
Yeah, Lorenzo's not making the race today. Why? Because some bloke from Yorkshire's leathered him.
Whooped his ass. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yoink, just shoulder chuck him.
And I turned up late for my commentary with Fred, and live on air on BT Sport in the UK, they had to go and knock Colin Edwards up out of his motorhome, and he come to the door in just his boxer shorts like that, like, mate, we're live on air. Where are you? Oh, I'll be doing it. Yeah, yeah. That was a fair drinking night. Good night.
Have you ever been to Edwards' boot camp in Texas?
No. I've always wanted to go, and I've actually wanted to come. And I'm not just saying this because this is a US podcast. It's America's a bit of a dream of mine to go and spend quite a lot of time there at some point. I'm going to have to wait till the boy gets a bit older. Now, I moved when I was younger for a little while. I was going to go touring, and my uncle lives in Bermuda.
Nice.
So we went there, and the idea was to do 6 months in Bermuda and then go across to the States and do a bit of a tour of the States and then maybe fly off somewhere else. But after 3 weeks in Bermuda, I got my visa revoked and sent home.
Oh, I couldn't imagine, right? Yeah.
Bearing in mind, Bermuda's a very small island. It's 21 miles long by a mile wide, and the speed limit there's 20 miles an hour or something. And as a non-resident, you can only hire scooters. And I got done for speeding 6 times, and I wrote
on a scooter.
Nice.
I went to the police station to get a bollocking, and they basically just ripped my visa up and said, mate, you need to go home. You're a liability.
You would love America, man, because here we have a rule for motorcyclists called "Don't stop for cops."
Facts, right?
We don't condone that, by the way, but that rule is out there.
No. Yeah, Mike. Listen, if you ever find your way out here, man, my house is open to you, man. Me, Casa, you can always stay with me.
Yeah, well,
your wife, your son, come on.
Yeah, I'm gonna, name check here a little bit, but I'm quite good friends with Ben Spees, one of your own.
Yeah,
and he's always telling me to come out, man, come and see us. And so I will get there. I will get there one day. Like I say, I think the boy needs to get to about 4 or 5 now, so it's a couple of years away. But no, I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll come back probably like 15 pounds heavier.
All that drinking.
No doubt.
30 kilos.
Facts, right? And all the different food we got compared to over there.
Good old
right?
Texas barbecue.
Yeah.
That's a big
It is. Yeah, for sure.
It's I have a friend from the UK that's coming to visit soon, and he's really excited to see how big everything is here. And I'm just like, bro, you don't even know the half of it. Like everything here is a freaking spectacle except for Moto America, and I'm really upset by it. So if I were to ask somebody who lives, sleeps, eats, breathes, dies British Superbike, right? If you were to give us advice, or like me and Chris are Moto America, if you were to give us advice on what we can do to get better or some innovation ideas, like what advice would you give us?
Well, I mean, I think with Moto America as it is now, I think it's coming back a lot stronger than it. It really did die a death, didn't it? When all the factories pulled out, it was horrendous for you guys. And then obviously Wayne took over, and Stuart Higgs from BSB has had a lot of input, and so has Scott Smart with the technical regulations. So it's, I think they need to stay on that path. But I think what's going to be one of the biggest saving things for you guys over there is the bagger racing. Because it's a little bit more relevant, it's a bit more prevalent, isn't it? And it's great racing. It's amazing.
Awesome.
I have a connection with that because Kyle Wyman?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, my friend Dave, who used to spanner for Leon.
Dave Hopkins. Yeah. I know him. Yeah, I know Dave.
Yeah, so I've got a connection there because I once mentioned to Dave, I thought if I went to the States, the prize money at that time wasn't bad. I thought I could come and do this. And he went, mate, he said, the prize money's there. He says, but your insurance is ridiculous. He says, you don't really, people think it's going to be easy money because you can finish in the top 10 and make a few quid, but it's just not like that. So that was, but yeah, I mean, they've got the baggers and you've got the other class with that style of bike, haven't you? And I think it's just things like that. You have to innovate and find out what the public want. And it just needs more support from the manufacturers or sponsors out there, but because you're racing over such a vast area, it's really hard because you've got your few guys at the front on the top bikes, but then some of the bikes are a little bit further back. Some of the good guys they're old bikes now. There's a 2017-18 BMW there. It's just not going to do anything. It can be there and thereabouts, but
no.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah. But I think it's probably in a better situation than it's been for a good 5 years or so.
I agree.
I mean, it helped through COVID because you guys were the first ones to start going racing again.
Yeah.
We got streamed over here, and it was like we were all watching that because there was nothing else to watch.
Right.
And people got into it a bit more, you know?
No, yeah, facts. And you know what else hurts us, man? We don't have no. You hit the nail on the head, man. We have no factory teams in Moto America, right? I think the closest factory team we have is HSBK Ducati because you see Paulo Ciabatti show up and some of the Ducati engineers, but you don't. As far as that goes, we don't have a direct factory road race team in America like we used to.
In the same way at BSB, it's not, you know, you're a factory supported team rather than a factory team. Their factory is not paying for your bikes like they did once of a day, you know, when you had the HRC teams and stuff. So it's, you know, there's still 2 or 3, you know, probably a $2 million a year enterprise that the HSBC Ducati's over there.
Sure.
Birdie used to put a fantastic amount of money into it, but yeah, it's more factory supported than a full factory team. But that's what they've got to find is a balance on how much the bikes are. I mean, it's got tough now because Ducati have made such a good bike in World Superbikes, British Superbikes. Mm-hmm. I think to be honest, I should have looked into Moto America a little bit more, but I don't know how many wins the Ducatis had this year, but.
They're like a very
Zavi won the Super Sport champion on the 959, and Josh Herron I think has won 2 races.
He's Josh Herron's the second. I think he's second behind Gagne, right? Or was it Beaubier still? So on the BMWs, I mean the BMWs are really strong this year, man.
Yeah, you guys are still on Dunlops, aren't you?
Yeah, we race American Dunlops, not the European Dunlops. So
yeah.
We got those plastic Hot Wheels tires, bro.
Yeah, I was telling Ben the other week, we were on a late night chat and we were on about the differences between the American Dunlops and the Europeans, and he went, it's night and day difference. It
is, yeah.
Because we were talking about the feel that you get from the Pirellis, and I said I could never get a feel for the Pirellis when we changed to the one make tire. And he was like, mate, you wanted to try riding the Dunlops over here. That'll tell you about no feel. Right on him, didn't he?
That's why I feel like they ride the way they do. Like it's so easy to kind of fishtail the bike into corners. That's why you see like in every slow motion they be doing that because they're riding on soap.
It does level it out in Moto America a little bit because it is Dunlops. Because I mean, all the Ducatis and the Yamahas and such, they kind of all made now and based around running the Pirelli tires. You know, Honda cleaned up at Suzuka 8 Hour on Bridgestones. You know, the Bridgestone is still an amazing front tire. But I think that's where you get that little bit of difference at Moto America that other teams are not having their arse handed to them like they are in World Superbikes and that, because it's a completely different tyre. So they can't take all that data from Europe and put it into those bikes. You've kind of got to find your own path.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Right. No, you're right. Go ahead, Jules.
On the British Superbike end, man, like I'm slowly starting to get into it just a little bit more.
Dude, BSB is the shit. Come on, man. Yes.
Fan of Danny Buchan. I love that guy. I don't know what it is about him, but you know, there's something about that dude that I really love. But the competition is so good out there, man. And I just feel like it's not always a runaway race. Like comparative to Moto America, like Superbikes, it ends up being a runaway race. Our super sport class ends up being a runaway race. Yeah. Stock 1000 ends up being a runaway. So that's what I like about BSB and World Superbike to an extent. But man, if there's a couple people that are in your radar that, you know, for someone like me who's just getting into it, who do you think I should watch and why?
Well, let's just start off with Danny Buchan, because I once got into a little bit of trouble with Danny and his mechanic at the time, Sam Palmer. We're good friends, we're great friends, but I once said on a podcast, because Danny is just phenomenal in Superstock, and I said the difference between him running on Superbike when he was struggling a little bit in the beginning and he'd not won a race yet. I said he's obviously more comfortable on a bike with a little bit of traction control, and he's struggling on the bigger Superbikes with the more powerful engines because he hasn't got that backup of the traction control. It could just be a mind thing. But what I did go on to say was, which saved my ass, I said at the end of the interview, I said, what I want to see, and I stand by it now to this day, because Danny Buchan is going to be one of the greatest British riders never to get to World Superbikes. And I swear down, and I stand by it now, if Danny would have gone to World Superbikes 4 years ago, he would at least have finished second in the championship by now, if not won it. He is incredible. He's a mega rider. He's had a crap season on the BMW. It's been hard work for him. And I hope that he finds a decent ride in Superbike next year, or if not, takes a year to come back to Superstock, and you'll watch him. He will clean up in that. But his mechanic and Danny said to me at the time, he said, "Listen, I can just ride a Superstock bike really well." I said, "We run next to no traction control, if any at all." But they didn't like the fact that I'd said it that way, that he could only ride with traction. But no, I stand by that. Danny should have been to World Superbikes. It just never happened for him. So, I mean, guys to watch now. Kyle Ride. I've always rated him as one of the.
Yeah.
I've watched Kyle from Moto 3 in the UK and whatnot, and always stated that if you watch Kyle at the side of the track, he's one of the best natural riders I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. What that kid can do on a bike that people miss because he might not have won the race, but some of the things he does at times are just unbelievable. Yeah. I really rate Kyle.
He's very smooth on that Yamaha. It's like really smooth riding style. Yeah.
And his teammate Vickers, again, he had a troublesome time on the BMW last year, but I always knew if he was on a different bike, I don't know why I didn't think the BMW would suit him, and it was proved right that it didn't. And he jumped on the Yamaha, which is very much more, it's slightly more of a 600 style.
It is.
And Ryan was good on a 600. So he's coming up. So I think he's one to watch for the next year or two. If Yamaha can just keep up with the development bit and make that bike that little bit better so it stays competitive and doesn't go the way that the Kawasaki's gone now, where it's just starting to lag.
Right.
Ryan Vickers is one to watch. Max Cook, the young kid. He's got a bright future in front of him. And then even the old stalwarts, really, people like Leon Haslam. He's on a private team. It looks like it's a big kind of factory effort because it's the same sponsors as the World Superbike team. But Leon's doing an awful lot on his own this year. And if they can build that into something next year, you could see Leon having a genuine fight for one last championship, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I think they're the guys to watch. I'd love Josh Brooks to roll back up the front because he's a top guy.
Brooksy,
He had a tough time when he come to BSB because there was an accident and bad boy Brooksy for a while. But he's a really great guy. That he's like us. He's just bikes.
Yes,
it's a bit more motocrossy, but he just lives and breathes them. So he's a really good kid.
And man, watching Brooksy over that mountain was phenomenal, bro. Jumping Caldwell Park, I was like, "Holy shit!"
The mountain, period. Yeah. I want to see that in freaking person, yo. Like,
listen, dude, I'm telling you, you got to.
I can never believe that shit.
Another one, Jules too, is Storm Stacy, Charlie Nesbitt. All those guys, for sure. Gorman, big shout out to him. Yeah, all those guys.
Yeah, I think was it? Oh no, it's Harley McCabe. Harley McCabe, a young kid.
Yep.
From a place called Halifax. Not far from us. He's been accepted for the Red Bull rookie testing, so he's going to be going doing that. Yeah, there's a lot of bright prospects for the British Championship. And like you said, the one thing that Stuart Higgs never does, the boss of BSB, he never lets it get stagnant. He'll make a rule change. He will keep it competitive in whatever way he can. There's going to be a few rule changes next year, I believe, that are going to bring the racing even closer together.
If it ain't plenty close already.
As far as
exactly. But the thing is, what we're kind of seeing now is the same kind of 6 or 7 at the front. There's a lot of different winners. They just want to bring them guys that are kind of hovering a bit, just that little bit further forward, so that there'll be more race wins. I mean, like you said there, Charlie Nesbitt was a baptism of fire at Thruxton, on the podium and doing all that. And Thruxton's a very, very unique circuit, and it can. I mean, he's suffered since because he had an awful time at Cadwell.
Yeah.
You can have a win at Thruxton, and it might be your only win of the season because it's a very strange track, and it can give you too much confidence. But make no mistake, in the next year or so, Charlie Nesbitt will be a British Superbike champion if he stays here. If he doesn't go to World Superbike.
Yeah, no, Charlie's awesome. He's amazing. His talent is phenomenal. It really is.
Looks like I'm about to follow a few people on Instagram.
But so like also, Michael, why don't you tell everybody that like here in America in the Superbike class, right? We got full on traction control, anti-wheelie, all that stuff. But a lot of people don't know British Superbike, man. They don't have all those electronic aids on the Superbike. Their super stock class has more electronics than the Superbike class. Go figure that one, right?
Apparently, Gagne's bike has a specific mapping for every corner of the track that he's in.
Yeah,
I think that's freaking nuts. Like,
it's one thing that would help Moto America if it was taken away. I wasn't really sure about the electronic rules, and it's not. Excuse me. It's not when it was brought in. So we trialed it in 2010. As I said, I was riding the Suzuki, and the Superbike Cup guys are on the rules that the BSB's on now. And what it was to help the lesser teams that couldn't afford the data engineer that had all the backing behind him and all the knowledge, that the smaller teams, because you'd taken everything away, the traction control programs and the anti-wheelie programs and this, that, and the other, it was there primarily to help the teams compete rather than going, we want the riders to be able to do everything. Yeah. But subsequently, it made the riders, I mean, some people don't understand that they think, oh, World Superbikes have got traction control, then bikes are so easy to ride and they're much easier than... It's a different way of riding, but by no means is it any easier. Fucking hell. You will see guys go to World Superbikes that struggle with traction control because you're mid-corner and you've to go full power. You know, your data man is telling you, you must bind that bike onto full power. Now, if you did that in BSB with no traction, you're off to the moon. It's a very different way of riding, and it's no better, it's no worse. But what it does help, the reason why it makes the racing closer is because the guys with all the money haven't got that advantage of all that data engineering stuff and setting things up, like you say, for each corner and things like that. I mean, you can still, within the rules of BSB, you can knock power out of, say, third gear. So when you're asking for 80% throttle, it will only give you 60. Right. But that's only in certain gears, not on certain corners.
Right.
And it does work really well. But yeah, you're riding something that's 235, 240 brake horsepower on that alone, and it really is all down to you. And it's just an adaptation. It's just an adaptation, and it's
is that like why you think like Bradley Ray's like having a little bit of a turbulent type of season?
Yeah, it's
like getting used to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and also you've got to remember Bradley missed quite a lot of the season because his team's not doing the flyaways, so he's not getting all the time on the back there. If he'd have gone to say Pata Yamaha, he'd have a lot more people behind him, and again, all the data. He might be able to look at the data after Top Rack's done his session, but they're not there setting it all up and doing it all. So yeah, he just needs a lot more time, and if that team take him around the world next year, Bradley will come on. Bradley's he's a very, very good rider.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Well,
he's a champion.
Well, I mean, Pata Yamaha has an extra seat next year.
No, because Johnny Ray signed, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, Johnny Ray. Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about that one.
How'd you? Yeah, Johnny
Ray.
Yeah.
I'm so used to seeing him in Cowie Green.
Yeah, it'll be odd, won't it? Watch. I mean, Johnny Ray.
Weird.
I raced with Johnny Ray in 2006. He was on the Red Bull. Was he on the Red Bull Honda?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. And I remember at Silverstone, I was having a torrid time, and it was the old international circuit, so not the full GP, but not the short one that we do now, like in between. And I just couldn't find a setup. I was really struggling on the bike, and I came in during qualifying for a tyre. And back then, qualifying was 45 minutes long, and my team manager went, "You are not getting a qualifying tyre. You are fucking 2 seconds a lap slower than where you need to be. Never mind."
Yeah, Jesus.
He said, "Go back out, give me a time." He said, "Then you can have a qualifier." And so I went and did my outlap. And you know where on the old pit straight at Silverstone, you go round turn one, and then you come out of pit lane onto the thing going into Maggots and Beckett's. And Johnny Ray was coming out of pit lane, so he was on his outlap. And I just got right on the tail of him, and he looked at me and saw it was me, like, and he turned me around on his outlap, and I went 2 seconds a lap quicker and come in and got my qualifying tyre. So then you understand how much talent these kids have got when he's on his outlap and he can bring me on by 2 seconds. You know, it was always going places. I had a really good relationship with the Honda guys back then because of Carl Harris. You know, my best friend. Yeah. So no, but it is going to be odd. It is going to be odd because he was a Honda man forever, wasn't he, Johnny?
He was.
Oh, yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, he did. And then he went to Kawasaki, and it was weird seeing him in green. Now it's going to be the same thing, seeing him in blue. But Mike,
the Antichrist.
Listen, I think at Johnny's stage, where he's at in his career, he needs that change. He needs that new challenge. He needs a new atmosphere, a new environment in order to get him winning again, right? And I think he'll win for sure. Now, Top Rack on the BMW, man, it's kind of hard to call if Top Rack's going to shine like he did on the Yamaha. I think he will, but that remains to be seen too as well.
If they can set that BMW up for the way that Top Rack rides, because he rides in a very, very different way to every other rider. I really do think that the BMW might be the thing that it's missed is someone riding the way Top Rack does. It's gonna honestly, it's gonna go one way or the other. It's gonna be frighteningly fast with him, or he's gonna really struggle. But I do know, I know the team behind him, Sean Muir's guys. Again, I've had a really good relationship with Sean over the years. I bought a Yamaha off him in 2014 that had a Ben Spies World Superbike chassis. That was a fucking bit of kit.
Phenomenal, right? Yeah.
So he's got the right guys behind him, and I think that's why Sean's kind of chased it and BMW have chased it, because I think they think that the way their bike is, because it's so much out and out power, that the way Top Rack brakes so hard, he will stop that bike in the corner and he will fire it out and he will get the advantage of the. I think the BMW struggles with edge grip. Well, with Top Rack, the way he rides, he might not need that edge grip like other riders do. He might be able to set it up and go. So, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, he reminds me of the old proper school of racing, right? Get it in, square it off, shoot it out. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
That was the kind of school I was from when I first started superbikes, because we didn't have, again in 06 we didn't have traction control. We did get some in 2008, but it was quite a basic form because we just didn't have the money. So that was always us, stop and go on the big superbikes, which is why to this day I can't ride a 600 for shite. It's laughable. It's laughable. What kids have passed me on the metric kits. You know what I mean?
The children these days, man, especially the ones coming up in Moto America, I'll shout them all. They know who they are, the future, and I can't wait to see what Top Rack does in that BMW, because I think he's the future goat. You know what I mean? But gentlemen, I'm gonna have to take off. I got to go ahead and clock into my actual job.
All right, Jules. Appreciate you jumping in.
Appreciate you, Howie. It was nice talking to you, man. We'll talk again
great to speak to you, dude.
Chris, the whole effing mega show Simcoe. See you guys at the
All
next
right,
one.
Jules. But yeah, man, I think that Top Rack is I think you're right on that. I think he's either gonna do big or he's just gonna be shit on it, right? So it remains to be seen, man, for sure. I think that the state of World Superbike is really good. And everybody complains about Alvaro, man. I'm like, listen, you can't, 500 revs, take away this, take away that. It's like, look, man, Alvaro, he can't help that he gels so well with Ducati. I mean, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to beat a team where a rider just gels, is one with the motorcycle, and is just frighteningly fast everywhere, right?
If it was purely just the motorcycle, then it'd be every Ducati 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Alex Lissani, all them guys would be winning, right?
Yeah, the others get decent results here and there, but it's just Alvaro. The first year that Alvaro was on the Ducati years ago, before he went to Honda, he was destroying the field, and then it fell apart. He fell apart like a cheap watch towards the end of the season.
He did.
And this year and last year, he just proved that at the minute, him and that bike together are just a cut above the rest. Well, it's them to the other teams, the other manufacturers, the Yamahas and the Kawasaki's. The development rate has slowed them so much. Some can say due to COVID and stuff, because it's same in MotoGP where they're also struggling there. But it really is, Ducati have produced something in MotoGP and World Superbikes and BSB that it's down to the other guys to catch up, or the rules get completely rewritten from top to bottom so that they can't use these homologation specials. And we bring the cost right back down and use a much more, there's the VR4, which is 1,000cc, but most of the Ducatis you see on the road are the 1,100, 1,200cc V4s, aren't they? So do we take the homologation specials away? Maybe, but then the old cynic in me used to love the things like the RC45s and the ZX7Rs and the proper homologation special bikes. So it really is down to Yamaha and Kawasaki's and Honda to catch up. You can't penalise Ducati for doing something so well, can you? To that extent, sometimes you've got to let the others catch up and pull the finger out.
100. Man, listen, I 100% agree with you. It's like, what do you do? I think that I mean, I would love to see us go back to the old proper school way of racing, right? But the way technology is, I mean, Michael, it's just not going to happen. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. But listen, dude, we've been talking a lot about racing. Let's get into what Michael likes to do, because I eat, shit, and breathe motorcycles just like you do, man. So what do you like to do away from racing when you're not into racing at all?
Mostly watch racing.
I knew you was going to say that because I'm the same way. I watch racing.
Like I said to you before earlier on in the interview, I am genuinely consumed by it. So if I'm not at a race meeting, I'll be watching MotoGP, I'll be watching World Superbikes, and I'll watch reruns, and I'll try and pick things out, and I listen a lot to the journalists so I can pick things up and try. Sometimes I shoot myself in the foot by knowing too much but not enough. Yeah. So I can go into a subject about things and sometimes get it wrong, but I'm not bothered. People ask me questions and I'll try and answer them. And if I know the answers, something's going on in MotoGP, specs. I remember years and years ago when Ducati first started with the lunchbox on the rear of the MotoGP bike. And because I'd been in the MotoGP paddock at Silverstone, I'd been basically told that it was what it was. It was this mass damper in the rear, and trying to then explain that to people. Me and Fred talked about it over the tannoy, and I'd looked online about what a mass damper was and did, and Colin Edwards had told me that Yamaha had tried it a few years ago, blah, blah, blah. So I knew it was there. And even to the point of last year, there was a picture put on with a Ducati smashed up, and you could see this mass damper in the lunchbox. And I put the post up on Facebook and went, there you go, finally. I've been, you can see there's the mass damper. And it was Josh Brooks that put a post up underneath. He said, are you sure that's nothing to do with the new ride-out devices? So I removed the post because I shit myself. I thought,
oh shit, baby. Yeah,
I've gone too early. But as it turned out, no, I was bang right. So the day after I put it up, I went, yeah, there you go. That's the mass damper I've been talking about for so long. And so, yeah, and then from there, now, say life's changed and life's good because I've got, I've got a new son that's 14 months old. So I like to spend a lot of time with him. I always have a day off a week where we go and have dad and lad day, it's father and son day, because he's just getting that age now where he's walking around and being a little lunatic. He's awesome, and hopefully I can stop him going racing bikes and going playing golf, and I can retire on the back of him. Because there's money in golf. Bike racing, you spend money. Golf, you earn money.
Facts. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Listen, we have a question from Rich Gibson. Huge shout out to Rich. He's a good mate of mine. He said, ask Howie about the Devil's Canyon Championship, arguing with him online.
So I think he's on about a guy. I think it might have been on Aprilia forum. And again, this is where knowing too much can get you in a world of crap because people don't want to listen.
Yeah.
And they do these canyon runs, don't they, in the US?
Yeah.
And he basically put a pair of slicks on his bike. So I just said to him, I said, why have you got them on your bike? Oh, for the grip and this, that, and the other. I went, you do understand about heat cycles and slicks. You're not going to get them. Well, we're so fast and I'm super fast and I'm mega fast. And I'm like, fucking hell, come and race me. Come and race me. I can't, you can never say that online because it just makes you look like a cock.
Right. Yeah.
So, but he kept being adamant about how fast he was. And I'm like, mate, I don't care how fast you are. Listen to me. Put some road tires on the bike, like the super stock tires of old that look like a road tire, but they've got the slits in, so they keep the temperature in better, and they can go through more heat cycles. Right. And he just wouldn't have it, and he was adamant that he was so fast that he had to have slicks. I'm like, oh, fuck off. At the end, just sorry to the mother-in-law there for swearing again. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I'll get myself into bits of arguments, and it doesn't matter how much you know or how right you are. Some people will still argue that black is white with you. It's just a nightmare. But I need to let shut up.
Yeah, I get in arguments with people like that too offline all the time. They're always picking my brain, and then I feel like they're only picking my brain to argue with me, right? Yeah. It's like, listen, I tell you what facts I know, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and that's
exactly it. If I'm so adamant about something, and it turns out that I'm wrong, I'm the first person to hold my hands up and say, guys,
me too.
Sorry, I was absolutely wrong. Yep. But my job at BSB doing the commentary, it's my job to know enough and explain things to race fans that are not massively technical and You know, they don't really care what's in the engine. So you try and kind of you say enough and let them know that you know about the tyres and how long they're going to last, and you know why this. For instance, pardon me.
No, you're good.
Going just a simple explanation on trying to explain to people how the V4 and the inline fours differ so much, or used to do. So, an inline four you used to struggle to turn it in, but once it was in, you'd hold a line really well. And this is coming from brainy people that have told me this. So it's not just me. This is guys like Matt Oxley that are the greatest journalists and riders that have ever been. And the V4, before all the aerodynamics came into it, they turned in very well, but wouldn't hold a line. So the V4s used to stop and start because they couldn't hold the line. And that's what Marquez was so good at.
Yep.
Now, the reason why the inline fours are struggling a little bit, the Yamahas in MotoGP, is because with all the aero, the V4 can now turn in and it can hold the line and off they go. So they've now got that corner speed that the Yamahas used to excel at, which is what was their strength. So it's not, it's not word of law as in, that is it and it's a matter of fact. It's just what Matt Oxley said, and after riding bikes for years, you kind of understand it. It's not always the truth because people do ride motorcycles in different ways, but just something roughly like that, and you say it to people and off they go. And they know somebody that once worked in a bike dealership in the back end of nowhere that's got told of a 75-year-old bloke that rode a fucking note. And that, and it's like, mate, things have changed. So now, like I say, it's not, the V4 has now got its advantage over the inline because it can hold a line. So things have changed and moved on. So it's not always your answer's not always going to be right forever. So you'll get someone coming back after a few years going, I told you so. It's like, mate, we're talking about 2004, not
right. Yeah, that's then they were talking. Yeah, technology's come so far, right? Everybody thinks let's keep it simple. Tires round and black, right? But they don't understand. It's like, look at Danny Perdosa before Michelin brought out that tire, and I think it was 2016. And if you looked at his progress up before then, man, he was fast, top 3 all the time, right? After that, he was total shit, and then he retires. And then they bring out a softer tire. Now he's a test rider for KTM. And how brilliant is you got a guy that's been retired for 6 years, show up to MotoGP race and beat all your factory riders in the same team, right?
It's funny you should mention that because I was listening to a podcast earlier about this very subject.
Now, really?
So this is... I will have to credit Matt Oxley and Peter Baum because this was on their podcast. So if you don't know who they are, find them on Spotify. Matt Oxley is an ex-racer and a MotoGP journalist. He's been in the paddock forever. Peter Baum is an ex-crew chief. He won Cal Crutchlow's World Supersport title with him, and he's been in the paddock.
2012, right?
Yeah. And they were talking about this in the podcast today. It's a really interesting listen. When Danny's season went to crap when the Michelin took over from Bridgestone, they brought a tyre to one of the tests, and basically this is what they're saying. This is not me, so don't start bastardizing me and shouting. Go and listen to their podcast. But basically, Scott Redding was dicking around on this new rear tyre, and it exploded.
Wow.
He was just messing around and having fun, but Michelin couldn't have it then because they couldn't have their tyre exploding. It's really bad for So then they brought the harder tyre in. Danny could never get the heat into it. So then, like you say, he retires. Then Michelin bring a softer tyre back out later on, and that's why he's now flying on the KTM and doing so well. So yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, but that's what it was. And Cal Crutchlow apparently gave Scott Redding a load of crap for that. Like, you dicking around, we had a really good rear tyre and now it's gone. It's a real bit, like I say, go and have a listen to their podcast. I can't remember what it's called, but just find Matt Oxley on Instagram or Facebook or anything and go and have a listen.
Spotify, all that good stuff.
Very, very technical. Not really funny, but if you want to know, if you've got a spare half an hour to want to find out about the technical things of racing, those guys are spot on.
Top notch. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think of the Marc Marquez debacle with HRC? I know, right? I get asked that too, Howie, all the time. I'm like,
a lot of it this year I've noticed, but again, this is my personal thought. So you can shoot me down for this, guys, if you want, but I think a lot of it has been played up an awful lot that Marquez is going to leave and this is happening. And I think Dorna have been loving it because it's been keeping the excitement going. Is Marquez going to go? Is Marquez going to stay? I'm 99.99% sure. Marquez was never going anywhere. He may have discussed with other people, but you don't just get out of a 25 million euro contract to go and ride for Grassini, which is a privateer team. Why would he want to go and ride on a privateer bike? He would surely stay where you are on the HRC bike, because to get out of that contract, he would probably have to pay nearly all the money. They've looked after him since through all his injuries. So I think a lot of that was a lot of hype and media that HRC, and I think Marquez fueled the fire a bit, but it's so difficult to say what they've been chasing the tail for a year or two. There's a lot of the chassis and things been coming back and forth since 2019 that you can physically see was the same thing, that they're just bringing back and trying, you know, and it doesn't help to have all your riders at one time. I think it was last year, all 4 riders were on a different chassis. I'm pretty sure. Or it was during one of the free practice sessions that all 4 riders were on a different chassis. So there's no data there.
No.
You know, Alex Rins proved this year that at the right track, the Honda still got it. Marquez seemed to have a bit of a lull at some point this year where he just looked disinterested and said, I can't keep throwing it up the road. But he's correcting that. He can't. You know, he's getting older and he's done himself a serious injury. So there's no point pushing for 10th. So what do? You kind of, and that's, in all honesty, I think that Marquez and Honda are going to regroup some quite considerably by the time we get to Valencia at the end of the year and do the test there, and kind of get ready for next season. So I never thought it was going to leave, because he would have gone if Ducati was going to take on Marquez and help him out his contract, he would be on the bike that
Morbidelli just got on.
Yeah, he would go to Pramac. Absolutely, they wouldn't want him on a 2022 bike or 23 bike as it'd be next year. It's no good for anyone. But I hope that Honda finds something.
Me too.
But they're going to have to go down the route of, you know, the engine doesn't seem to be quite there. That seems to be the struggle, and they're struggling with grip, which is an aero thing. And this is where the argument about aero comes in. But it's here now, and it's here till at least 2027, so it stays. So it's down to Honda to do something for the next couple of years. It's a shame that the next rule change for MotoGP is so far away, because right now we need to get Yamaha and Honda back in the game. And people are complaining like, well, there's 8 fucking Ducatis out there. Well, there's 8 Ducatis out there because the other manufacturers aren't good enough. So the privateer teams have wanted to buy a Ducati.
Yeah.
At one time, every team in the paddock that was a privateer would have given the left testicle for a Yamaha. It was right to have as a privateer. When Harvey Poncherel had the monster team, everybody wanted it. It was easy to ride and you could get a result. And now it's just gone to Ducati. And what people forget as well, in the 90s and on the 500s and stuff, how many Hondas were on the grid? How many Yamahas were on the grid? You know, there was no Ducatis. Kajiva came in for a little while and what's it, and Suzuki were kind of there, but there were as easily as many Hondas on the grid back then. And even at the very start of MotoGP, how many RCVs were there on? So it's people keep going on about, there's too many Ducatis. Well, get the other manufacturers to sort their bikes out, and the privateer teams will want their bikes back. You know, it does need 4 Yamahas on the grid. You know, it does need 4 Hondas. Yeah. And that'll take away 2 Ducatis straight away. So then it's a little bit more of a level playing field. There'll be 6 Ducatis, and you know, it's so. Yeah, you can't knock Ducati for doing so well and people wanting their product.
You can't. You know, and they've been the major player as far as aerodynamics and the whole shot device too, as well, right? Which, man, to me, listen, I love MotoGP just like everybody else, but everybody knows I'm a BSB person at heart. It's my favorite series, but on MotoGP, man, I feel like it's just gotten too robot-y, right?
Yes.
You're racing a robot. You're not racing a motorcycle, and it's it's crazy.
I don't agree with the whole shot devices, and I don't agree with this, you know, letting the rear down on the start finish straights, because it detracts. You know, they started saying now that the racing's getting a bit tame because people can't, you know, they're not going to make the passes, they're not going to come out of the corner because they've got to do that and lower the rear. Yeah. All that ride out device stuff needs to be gotten rid of, and that needs to be done before 2027, because they'll end up, MotoGP, I believe, will end up finding themselves in the same situation that they had when they came to the end of the 500 era.
Yeah.
When World Superbikes was huge, you know, MotoGP or 500 Grand Prix, it was nearly gone. It got that close to because the racing was just shite.
It was.
And if they're not careful, they're going to find themselves in that same situation. And like I say, there's no getting away from the aero now, I don't think. It's kind of there to stay. And whatever they do in the rules in 2027, I think now that aero's playing such a big part, and ground effect as well, which somebody said, an F1 guy said, they need to stop chasing this ground effect thing with the aerodynamics. He says, because it'll open a can of worms that you'll never get away from. He said, and it will kill it. It will absolutely kill it. So that more than the wings, you know, this ground effect thing that they're like on the Pirelli where they've got the bulges, and that will be developed further and further. He says it'll cost too much money and it will kill the racing. So
yeah, I agree.
It's like I say, it's such a shame that we're so far away from the rule changes, because something needs to be implemented sooner. But Ducati, you know, in the IRTA things and with Dorna, every single team has to agree to a change. Ducati are never going to agree to a change till 2023 when they're winning it. So it's really, really hard. So unfortunately, until then, the other guys have got to keep up. The Aprilia are doing such a sterling job. They're not. The company behind them, Piaggio, are massive and could afford to compete against Ducati money-wise. But I just don't think they put that amount of money into it. I think they're just using their money very wisely and doing a very, very good job with a good bike.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, they've approved come a long way since the RS Cube. Let's just be honest, right? That almost barbecued Colin Edwards, yeah, and several German McWilliams, right? Yeah, but what a beautiful machine that was. That RS Cube was a proper looking bike.
Yeah, again, it was because it was Cosworth that built the engine, wasn't it? And it was again this use of F1 technology and F1 style engines that just doesn't work in motorcycles. It was half of an F1 engine or something, a bit like the MV Agusta that I rode. That was half of a Ferrari engine, but it was so detuned so that it would stick, so it would work. So I've got something stuck in my shoe. So that never made the power, but the Cube made too much power, but all in the wrong places. And back then, the electronics weren't just advanced enough to be able to cope with it. But Jerry McWilliams said it was a pile to ride. Shaky Byrne couldn't, it was a bit of a career ender, but like you said, it sounded incredible, and it looked amazing. Like Jeremy McWilliams once said, he asked him to quiet it down, and Dorna asked Aprilia not to, because it was a focal point of the racing back then. Yes, it was going nowhere, but it just sounded so incredible.
It was.
Dorna wanted it. Yeah,
it was so mint, man. Yes, it was so mint. And then, of course, we already touched on this. Yamaha really need to bring it up with. Clearly, Fabio's not happy with Yamaha, and we all heard this a lot in the media. Everybody says they need to get away with the inline 4 and go to V4. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, it's one of them things that someone in the media has mentioned it or said it on during a race, and the commentators. So everyone's jumped on the back of it now and said they've got to have a V4. Well, Yamaha have come out plainly and simply said that before 2027 there will not be a V4, but also the amount of years it would take for Yamaha to develop a V4 that would be competitive, they probably won't work well into maybe 2030.
Yeah.
So is it the answer? What they've got to do is refine that package and go. They keep seeming to. They can make the engine more powerful, but then they make it less rideable.
Yeah.
So make that engine with the. This is easy for me to say. I'm just a clown in a workshop in the middle of Yorkshire in England, but make that power more usable and stop. Fabio's kind of. I blame Fabio a little bit, and some people who shoot me down, but. He's basically developed that bike to a complete stop, because all he's wanted is power, and then when it's not doing what the Yamaha's strongest point which was the corner speed, he's then complaining. So it's really going to change that bike to a V4 within the next 4 years. It's not happening. They may have already be planning a V4, but again, being the cynic in me, do we want them to build a V4? Can we not, can they not find, there's enough technologically advanced people in the world that could make the inline 4 work. They just need to find them. Because then everyone's on V4s. Yeah. So you might as well have a one-make championship then, except that all the V4s once of the day, like with the Suzuki back when that was a V4, and, the Aprilias when they first come in, were all different kind of Vs, and it was all
90s and 70s and all that, yeah.
Yeah, and now all the V4s are the same.
Yeah.
The Honda's starting to look very much like a Ducati. The Ducati's starting to look a bit like an Aprilia. The Aprilia looks like a Ducati and a Honda, and the Honda wants to look like you know, you might as well have a one-make series. So no,
like NASCAR here in America, right? Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, I personally hope that they don't.
Yeah, me too.
I want them to find their own way with what they know and what they've done. I mean, you know, people saying, you know, I think it was Yamaha were the first people to have a V4 in 500s. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they could do it. I'm pretty sure. Oh, they had it before. I'm pretty sure they were. I might be wrong, but they have had a V4. Right. They did have a V4 in the 500 era.
They did. And man, dude, the 500s were such proper weapons, right?
Yeah,
the 2 strokes, man. Oh man, I miss those.
Yeah, just absolute animals. I mean, I do at BSB. I do the pillion laps with.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah. So you get to go. I mean, there's a video on my Instagram from Sunday, and someone got on the back and basically I just spent all going around Alton Park just on the back wheel with this woman on the back screaming like a screaming banshee. She was. She loved it. But I do them with Neil McKenzie.
Oh yes.
I get to have quite a bit of talk, and we talk about his sons and whatnot, and we're quite pally. But yeah, you listen to some of the things he tells you about the 500s, and you're like, because all you ever want to say is, I love a go on one of them, and then it's like, no, you fucking wouldn't.
No, you don't. Trust me. Yeah.
It's like, you know, the way the power coming on some of them was incredible. I think by the time they were getting rid of him in Valentino Rossi's era, they were quite a rideable machine, because I think they were learning about cuts in ignitions and things like that. So they weren't the wild animals, but yeah, there was a bit of an era of the 500s that was just insane, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, man, dude, next time I come out there, dude, you need to take me a ride around the track for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be fun. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, listen, Howie, dude, we're an hour and 30 minutes into this podcast. It only seemed like we've been on here for 20 minutes, right? This is proper chat. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go back to work. So I'm gonna have to end the podcast. But listen, let's do a part 2 to this at the end of the year, and we can go over, you know, the season in BSB and MotoGP and continue this epic conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to come back, and I hope that the people are still watching. That I put the link on for Facebook, so we'll see if we get a fairly decent review. I think that the mother-in-law will be quite happy because I've not sworn too much.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of viewers and a lot of Terry Stroud. Man, listen, big shit out to everybody that's watched and comment. Peter Marsh, man, thank you. What an honor it is to be part of you and the team. Man, everybody that watches, I always tell everybody how what an honor it is to be able to do this, and just all the love and support we get is just it's phenomenal. I mean, it really is. But I'll be at Jersey at the end of the year this weekend coming up for the last round of Moto America, which is going to be awesome. And yeah, so listen, but before I end this, Howie, why don't you tell everybody how they can find you on social media, and if they're in the UK, how they can bring their bike and drop it off to you so you can properly get it done for them.
Yeah, so if you want to find me on Instagram, I think it's Howie2794, so it's HOWIE2794, all one word on there. And on Facebook, it's Michael Howarth. You'll normally be a picture of me and the boy, or a picture of me pulling a wheelie on a bike. So yeah, no, please add me up. I'm always happy to talk to people and get into conversations and even arguments. If you want to have a Barney and an argument, I'm fine with that. But yeah, and then for the guys in the UK, a lot of my people on Facebook know already. I've opened this little bike shop called Motorcycle Stars that started off 12 months ago in my shed, the back of my house. And we're prepping race bikes and building race bikes and servicing road bikes and things like that. So if you need anything doing, come and hit me up and we'll look after you. I don't specifically build engines and such, but I have engine builders. And the whole thing with Motorcycle Stars, it's a little bit that I want to make a little bit of a biker community. And it sounds really cheesy, but it's genuinely true. I don't want to start building engines here. I want people I know to do engines for me because they're the best in the business. And luckily, because of my contacts, I have them. So there's no point me doing that. But I can prep one hell of a race bike for you. Believe me. So yeah, no, thanks ever so much for having me on. It's been an absolute blast. I'm going to go and have some tea, as we call it now in the UK. And that's not a drink, that's food. It's tea time over here. Not dinner time, it's tea time.
Tea time, that's right. I learned all about that being over there, right? Yeah, I was like, what's that? They're like, well, come on, have a sit and I'm gonna show you all about it. Yeah, it was proper. But yes, Michael, man, what an honor to have you on Pin to Gas podcast. And looking forward to the next episode, part 2, coming up. Listen, everybody, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. What an honor it is to be able to do this and all the love and support, man. And thank you to everybody. You know who you are. I'd be on here for an hour giving shout outs to everybody. So thank you very, very much. And yeah, you guys already know where to find us. We're on Spotify. So yeah, Mike, tomorrow this episode will be out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all that stuff that goes along with it. So anyway, until next time, thank you guys for joining in on this epic podcast, Pin to Gas. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, see ya.